There is a magic to a lake, a universal pull. It's a place of peaceful memories, of long summer days and quiet, star-filled nights. We are drawn to the water's edge, to its promise of calm, of recreation, of a serene escape from the noise of our lives. We see a mirror to the sky, a placid, sun-dappled surface, and we feel at peace. But beneath that tranquil surface lies a different world, a world of absolute darkness and crushing pressure, a world of freezing, black water that holds its secrets close. The bottom of a lake is a place of history, of forgotten things, and sometimes of unspeakable tragedy. The placid surface is a mask, hiding the chilling depths below. Tonight, we are venturing past the shoreline. We are exploring 3 true, spine-chilling stories from people who came face to face with the horrors that lurk in and around these dark waters. They are reminders that what you can't see can absolutely hurt you. Our first story takes us to the shores of Lake Bodom, near Helsinki, Finland. Today, it's a popular recreation spot, but it is also the site of one of the most brutal, terrifying, and maddeningly unsolved crimes in Scandinavian history. It's a crime that has become a dark legend, a true horror story that began with 4 teenagers, a tent, and a beautiful spring evening. On June 4th, 1960, 2 15-year-old girls, Mila Irmeli Björklund and Anja Tuulikki-Mäki, went on a camping trip with their 18-year-old boyfriends, Seppo and Tero Boisman and Niels Wilhelm Gustafsson. They chose a secluded spot on the southern shore of Lake Bodom, pitched their tent, and settled in for a night of youthful fun and romance. They fished, they swam, and as night fell, they retired to their tent. Sometime in the pre-dawn hours, between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. on June 5th, an unknown person or persons approached their tent. What happened next was an explosion of savage, inexplicable violence. The attacker did not unzip the tent. Instead, using what police believe was a large rock and a knife, they began to attack the teenagers through the canvas walls. The assailant slashed and bludgeoned the sleeping teens from the outside, a frenzied, chaotic assault in the dark. When the sun rose, a group of boys bird-watching nearby noticed the collapsed tent and something amiss. They saw a blonde-haired man walking away from the scene, but thought little of it at the time. It wasn't until hours later that the full horror was discovered. Inside the bloody, shredded tent were the bodies of Mela, Anja, and Seppo. They had been brutally murdered. The sole survivor was Nils Gustafsson, who was found lying on top of the collapsed tent, conscious but in a state of shock, with a concussion, fractures to his jaw and facial bones, and stab wounds. The crime scene was a bizarre and confusing puzzle. The keys to the boys' motorcycles were missing, but the motorcycles themselves were still there. Some of the victims' clothing, including Nils's shoes, were missing, only to be found hidden several hundred yards away. The murder weapons were never recovered from the lake or the surrounding woods. The investigation was massive, but it was plagued by mistakes from the start. The crime scene was not properly secured, allowing evidence to be contaminated by onlookers and even the police themselves. For decades, the case went cold, becoming Finland's most disturbing national mystery. Numerous suspects were investigated, including a man known to be a KGB spy and a local kiosk vendor who was famously hostile towards campers. But no charges were ever filed. The story of the Lake Bodom murders became a terrifying cautionary tale. Then, in 2004, came the most shocking twist of all. After 44 years, Finnish police announced they were reopening the case. They had new forensic technology, specifically DNA analysis, and they had a new single suspect, Niels Wilhelm Gustafsson, the lone survivor. The prosecution put forward a chilling theory that a drunken argument within the group had exploded into violence, leading Niels to murder his 3 friends. They claimed his injuries were self-inflicted or sustained in a lesser fight with his friend Seppo. They attempted to discredit his story of an outside attacker. The entire country watched, horrified, as the man everyone had seen as a victim was now being painted as a brutal killer. But the defense argued that the evidence was too thin and that Niels's injuries were too severe to be self-inflicted. After a dramatic trial, in October of 2005, Niels Gustafsson was acquitted of all charges. The verdict brought the case right back to where it started. If Niels didn't do it, who did? Who was the blonde man seen walking away from the tent? What was the motive for such a random, savage act of violence? To this day, the Lake Bodom murders remain officially unsolved. The lake keeps its secrets, and the terrifying truth of what happened that night remains a dark, horrifying mystery, a testament to the fact that sometimes the monster that comes from the dark is human. Some lakes are not just bodies of water, they are watery graves. Our next story takes us to Lake Lanier in Georgia, one of America's most popular and most notoriously deadly lakes. Since its creation in the 1950s, over 700 people have died in its waters, many under strange and unexplained circumstances. Locals whisper that the lake is cursed, haunted, and there's a good reason why. Lake Lanier is a man-made reservoir. To create it, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers flooded over 50,000 acres of land. They flooded entire towns, farms, and forests. They also flooded cemeteries. While some graves were relocated, many were not. To this day, at the bottom of Lake Lanier lie entire towns, buildings, and forgotten graveyards, their headstones covered in silt, their coffins long since rotted away. This story comes from a man we'll call Marcus, an experienced swimmer and boater who had been going to Lake Lanier his whole life. He had heard the ghost stories, but always dismissed them as folklore. On a hot summer afternoon, he took his boat out to a quiet, deep water cove to go for a swim. The water was calm and glassy. He dove in. The cool water was refreshing. He was a strong swimmer, comfortable in the deep. He swam about 100 feet from his boat, treading water and enjoying the peace. That's when he felt it. Something brushed against his leg. It was a light touch deep beneath the surface. He assumed it was a large catfish or perhaps a sunken tree branch. He wasn't alarmed. He started to swim back towards his boat. He felt it again. This time, it wasn't a brush. It was a distinct, firm grip on his ankle. It felt, unmistakably, like a human hand. Panic surged through him. He violently kicked his leg, and whatever was holding him let go. He didn't wait to find out what it was. He began swimming frantically towards his boat, his powerful strokes clumsy with terror. The peaceful cove now felt like a giant liquid tomb. He was halfway to the boat when he felt it again. Not one hand, but several. He felt phantom limbs grabbing at his legs, his waist, his ankles, pulling him down. The water around him grew unnaturally cold. It felt as though a group of people were under him, trying to drag him into the crushing darkness. He could feel their fingers digging into his skin. He screamed, but his mouth filled with water. He thrashed and kicked with all his might, fueled by pure adrenaline. It was like fighting invisible ropes. Just as his lungs were about to burst, the pulling sensation suddenly stopped. He surfaced, gasping, choking, and clawed his way the last few feet to his boat, hauling his exhausted body over the side. He lay on the deck for several minutes, heart pounding, his body trembling uncontrollably. When he finally sat up, he looked down at his legs. Encircling both of his ankles were dark, red marks that were rapidly turning into deep purple bruises. They were the distinct size and shape of human handprints. Marcus never swam in Lake Lanier again. He believes that day he trespassed on a watery grave, and the spirits of those buried beneath the lake tried to claim him as one of their own. His story is a spine-chilling testament to the local legends, and a disturbing reminder that when you swim in Lake Lanier, you are never, ever swimming alone. For our final story, the horror comes not from within the water, but from what the water conceals. This account comes from two friends, Gary and Tom, on a late-night catfishing trip at a remote, fog-shrouded Oxbow Lake in rural Mississippi. They were experienced outdoorsmen, comfortable with the strange sounds and shadows of the night. But what they encountered on this night was something that defied all their knowledge of the natural world. It was well after midnight. They were in a small aluminum john boat, anchored in the middle of the lake. A thick, heavy fog rolled across the water, reducing visibility to less than 20 feet and muffling all sound. The only light was the dim, battery-powered lantern hanging from a pole on their boat. The atmosphere was eerie and still. They were talking in low voices when a sound from the nearby shore cut through the fog. It was a loud splash, as if someone had thrown a large boulder into the water. They fell silent, listening. Then came another sound, a deep, wet, gurgling noise, like someone gargling mud. It was followed by a low, guttural grunt that sounded nothing like a boar, a deer, or any other animal they had ever heard. Gary nervously aimed a powerful flashlight beam towards the shore, but the fog was too thick. The beam was swallowed by the white wall of mist. They told themselves it was just a big beaver, or maybe a wild hog. But they both felt a deep, instinctual fear. They decided to pull up anchor and move to the other side of the lake. As Tom quietly began to pull the anchor rope, they saw it. A shape moving on the water's surface just at the edge of their lantern's glow. It was a V-shaped wake cutting through the still water, heading directly for their boat. It was moving with terrifying speed. Gary frantically grabbed the flashlight again and aimed it at the wake. In the beam, a head broke the surface. It was pale white, mostly hairless, and glistened in the light. It had no discernible nose or ears. Its mouth was a wide, lipless slit. And its eyes were huge, round, and completely black, like the eyes of a deep-sea fish. The thing was not swimming like an animal. It was pulling itself through the water with two long, incredibly thin, spindly arms that ended in webbed, three-fingered hands. It was impossibly fast. Tom screamed and dropped the anchor. Gary, fumbling with the pull start on their small outboard motor, finally got it to roar to life. As he slammed it into gear, the creature was less than 10 feet from their boat, its wide black eyes fixed on them. The gurgling sound now a loud, menacing hiss. They sped away across the foggy lake, not daring to look back until they reached the boat launch. They threw their gear in their truck and got out of there as fast as they could. They tried to find an explanation. An alligator gar? A mutated animal? But nothing fit. The humanoid arms, the pale head, the speed. It was something unknown. They had intruded upon the territory of a creature that only existed in the dark, foggy nights on that isolated lake. They are left with the horrifying memory of those black eyes and the chilling knowledge that some lakes are not just home to fish, but to ancient, undiscovered predators that surface from the depths when the fog rolls in. An unsolved murder on a placid shore, unseen hands reaching from a watery grave, an unknown creature emerging from the fog. 3 stories, all bound by the deep, dark, and mysterious nature of lakes. They remind us that these bodies of water are beautiful, yes, but they are also wild, untamed, and hold secrets we can't begin to fathom. They are a boundary between our world and a much older, darker one that lies just beneath the surface. What do you think lurks in the deep, dark waters of the world? Share your own theories or true lake horror stories in the comments below. And if you find these explorations into true, spine-chilling events compelling, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more content from the edge of the unknown. Thank you for watching.